I'm Steve Evans along with Brock Yates and Ed Bruce. And the yellow flag, which is still being displayed, has allowed Sammy Swindell, the red #1 car, the second car in the picture, to move right up behind the leader, Keith Kaufman. What a restart this could be, Brock Yates.
Well, also, Steve, we got Doug Wolfgang back there in the 4th spot, and he and Brad Doty, no question about that, they know that with about 16 laps left, they're going to make this one stick. Doty, of course, fell off the pole on the initial start of the race. That hurt him badly. He doesn't want that to happen again. So there's going to be a bunch of jockeying for position as these guys come around turn 3. Kaufman on the hammer. He knows the green is out. We've got a restart.
And the real war is going to come in turn #1. Swindell will try to get under Kaufman there, but Kaufman's got a beautiful start. Swindell is not going to have a chance on this lap.
Absolutely right, and already they've broken loose a little bit from the rest of the field. There goes Randy Wolf being challenged by Doug Wolfgang in the blue and white number 29. Here comes Kaufman. Swindell right on his rear bumper into turn 3. Here comes Wolf. Wolfgang. There's Brad Doty, and behind him, kind of trailing in 6th place, is Jeff Swindell, Sammy's brother.
Well, here again come the leaders into turn #1. Swindell has now narrowed it up. Swindell going in very low, very tight against the wall.
Well, Kaufman doing a good job, too. He deserved all kinds of credit. He came off turn 2 a little bit quicker than Sammy and opened up about a 3-car length lead down into turn 3. That seems to be the place where Kaufman's car works best. Sammy works best into turn 1.
Absolutely right. Between turn 4 and turn 1 is where Swindell appears to have maybe a little bit of an advantage. But look at Kaufman, how well he is holding off that 2-time world champion. He tagged the rail. Swindell got in so low that he tagged the rail.
What a drive, and that slowed him up a little bit. Kaufman pulls out about a 10-car length lead down the back straightaway. That was a costly error on Sammy's part. Just driving that car as hard as he can, and as we said earlier, these are very twitchy, short-wheelbase race cars, overpowered and unstable at best.
And here is the race for the 3rd spot. Randy Wolf, the blue and yellow 5W, just ahead of the Wolf. Doug Wolfgang in the blue and white number 29 car.
Well, Wolfgang, as you saw, took an outside line down the front straight, tried to get wide into that corner, couldn't make it stick, slowed up a little bit, scrubbed off some speed, and Randy Wolf in the 5-car pulls out a little bit. So he's got a little bit of a cushion in that 3rd place spot. Right behind him, though, Doug Wolfgang applying the pressure.
And Randy and Doug know that they have really got to stand on the gas if they have any hopes of winning this thing, because they're going to run out of laps. And earlier you heard Sammy Swindell say that was his biggest concern, having to start back in 6th, was running out of laps before he could get the job done.
Well, as we watch Wolf and Wolfgang sweep through down the back straightaway. You know, Steve, there's an awful lot of guesswork in a chassis setup for this kind of a race. There's tires, there's suspension settings. We watched that race between Doty and Jeff Swindell. I'm sure Brad Doty made a bad guess somewhere along the line. Tire stagger, wing angle, something is messing that car up, because he normally is very quick. And right now, Jeff Swindell is starting to challenge him, moving in on Brad Doty and trying to get that 5th spot away from him.
Well, the one thing they don't seem to guess up very much, in fact, Brad Doty told me, is the gearing. On the mile track, well, you just double the gear you run on a half mile. These are quick change rears. You just swap those 2 gears in the back.
Not a whole lot of guesswork there. Here comes some of the lap traffic and the leaders. Gary Albritton in the yellow suit. Remember when Kaufman got by him. But look at Swindell just tucked underneath Kaufman and trying to get by him on the back straight.
And this is where Kaufman needs some lap traffic to try to use him as pawns in this chess game with Swindell. Even though Sam has already rubbed the rail, and he does it again. Nothing seems to deter this guy. He is going after Kaufman before this race is over.
Oh, boy, he sure is. Here they go, threading their way through some of the slower traffic. Kaufman down low. Can't quite get by that slower car. Gets it sideways, and Swindell right up against him again.
And what composure Keith Kaufman has shown here. Constant pressure from Swindell. Now, again, lapping Leonard Proudhigh. Swindell tucked up right underneath him. You don't know which way Swindell's going to go. Low, high. He'd like to go low, but he's willing to do either one.
Well, he's keeping it right up against that inside fence. That seems to be the fast groove right now. Kaufman, of course, staying down there as well. They threaded their way through that slower traffic pretty effectively. Sammy looking for a hole, but couldn't quite do it. But boy, is he applying pressure to Kaufman. And you've got to know, these guys have a sixth sense. You said no rear view mirror, and you're absolutely right. But these guys know when somebody is right behind them. And boy, I'll tell you what, Swindell just couldn't get any closer to Kaufman and not pass him.
Well, in this case, Kaufman can hear Sammy Swindell.
Absolutely. Tires broken coming off that dirt track, just as hard as asphalt right now. As Kaufman gets a little loose going into turn number 1, but still holds on.
Big, tall, strong Keith Kaufman in the lead. Behind him, Sammy Swindell, very slightly built, maybe 135, 40 pounds, about 5'10". But with the power steering of these cars, you don't need a lot of strength, just a lot of guts and savvy.
Sammy once again just scuffs against that inside rail coming into 3. What a race these two guys are putting on, and you can see, Steve, that they pulled way out from the third-place driver, Randy Wolf.
Oh, yeah, this is a match race now between Pennsylvania's finest and one of the finest sprint car drivers in the world from Tennessee, Swindell, who's again right behind him.
Well, they sweep by the slower lap car on the outside. No apparent problem there. I'm sure Keith was hoping maybe he could nip by him and hold Sammy out going into the turn, but it didn't work out that way.
Well, Sammy urging that Gambler chassis sprint car forward, trying to get alongside Keith Kaufman before they get to turn 1. That's not going to happen. Swindell will go down low, I'm sure. In fact, Solo, Rob, that he rubs the rail again. There's not going to be much left of that left front wheel. He continues with this.
Well, I hope he's not banging up the suspension. Once again, that cost him about 3 car lengths. Each time he's done that, it's been enough to push Kaufman out front a little bit farther. But here he comes. Sammy never gives up. Right back up there to challenge Keith one more time, coming down the front straightaway. This is where the favorite passing area is on this racetrack, but Keith Kaufman doing a masterful job of just using all that racetrack, just enough to hold Sammy up. It's possible, Steve, that Sammy is a little bit quicker than Keith, but the way Keith is driving this racetrack, he's just holding him up enough so he doesn't have the momentum. Look at Kaufman, got wide in turn 3, and Swindell goes through to lead it.
You know, Swindell was watching that car. They were about to lap the 28 car, and he set him up perfectly. When Kaufman moved out to go around that car, Swindell went underneath.
Well, that was Ty Scott. Sammy Swindell takes over with that pass on the number 28 lap car of Ty Scott and puts Keith Kaufman back in the second spot. Just a little bobble on the part of Kaufman. A beautifully driven race by him so far, and just that one little error cost him perhaps the event. Right now, though, his job is to get back up behind Swindell, and he's still got some lap cars between him. So Sammy on the final lap here has moved out to a big, big lead.
Well, Keith Kaufman right now, considering the lap cars between the two of them, has very little chance of winning this unless something happens to Swindell. And the punishment that Swindell has inflicted on that race car, anything could happen.
Well, right now, though, it's Keith Kaufman still trying to make that distance up. Going through turn 3, he's still behind Ty Scott. Here comes Sammy to win it down the front straightaway. The checkers out. What a race.
Sammy Swindell wins the Syracuse Ground Round Super Nationals in the car owned by drag racer Raymond Beadle out of Dallas, Texas. The big number 1 on the wing, a very appropriate mark for Sammy Swindell.
And Keith Kaufman, a terrific race. Just one little bobble cost him victory. We'll be back to talk to Sammy and Keith Kaufman following this. Wolfgang gets up into third spot, passing Randy Wolf. Brad Doty rounds out the top 5. Steve Evans.
Well, Swindell did it all this weekend here at Syracuse, Brock. He won the race for the 2nd year in a row, earned over $20,000, set a world record without even trying to do it, and now the fans have a chance to come down and take a good close look at the winning sprint car. And here was the winning pass. The car in the middle was the leader at the time, Keith Kaufman, number 77. He's closing very rapidly on number 28, Ty Scott. He's got to put a lap on Scott, but Scott is right down on the groove. Now, Kaufman elected to go high, and that was the fatal mistake. Sam stayed down low, just glued to that wall in turn 3, took the lead, and never looked back. Right now, he's out of the car, and Brock's with him.
Sammy Swindell cleans off little grime and dirt here. Sam's sensational. Hard work, though, huh? Bounce it off the fence once and one, is that right?
Well, yeah, Keith got in. He was kind of used his tire up a little early. And, you know, he kind of had it blistered, and ours was still good, so I was kind of saving it, but he had probably a little more motor than we did. I know he got a bigger one. And I could outrun him, you know, but I couldn't pass him down the chutes. He was slowing me way down the corners. And
yeah, I could see him got all over him in the corners, but he had a lot of beans on the straight, didn't he?
Yeah, he had his car set up to run a little less wing, so he could come off, but our car was really working better, and we didn't use the tires up.
Did you think he could get him? It's a hard racetrack to pass on, and that car gets wide.
Yeah, well, he was running right in the middle where you couldn't really get by. The only chance I had was in the lap cars, like up there. He, I guess, just lost concentration a little bit. I got to pushing him a bit down the back chute, and just to let him know I was there. And he got in a little wide into 3, and that's all we needed. I was, just right under him every time, just waiting for him to slip. But he was making sure he kept the door closed with the guardrail on the inside. There's nothing you can do. You can't put a half a car in a half a space.
Super effort, Sammy. Congratulations, as usual. Great job.
Thanks.
Okay, let's go to stay with the second place finisher, Keith Kaufman.
Keith, I know you hated to settle for second spot, but nobody drove a better automobile race than you did out there.
Well, lap traffic's a factor here. It might have helped me some of the race, but it cost me the race the last 2 laps.
A sensational start. You were on the inside and passed on the outside of the first lap.
Well, I told you it was going to be a mad scramble for the turn. Whoever got in the turn was going to lead it, and you had to get to the corner first.
When Swindell made that move, he suddenly opened up a number of car lengths on you.
Well, he snuck by them guys, and I got pinched in behind him and never got by him.
But still a tremendous race, and congratulations on a wonderful effort.
Thank you.
Okay, let's go to Brock with third place.
Steve, I'm with Doug Wolfgang, who, as usual, put up a valiant effort, but it looked as if this was just a question of raw horsepower as far as Sammy and Keith were concerned. They had a bunch of power on the straights, Doug, and it just didn't look like you were able to run with them.
I kind of thought yesterday we might not be. I think I'm running on the straightaway. I'm not handling getting into the corner as well as they are, and I think it's largely due to the fact I'm running a heavier engine, a big block motor, and I should have probably had an aluminum small block in it. And they were just operating, and Sammy was fortunate to get by him there at the end. And I think I was coming, but it don't matter. They run first and second.
You had a lot of work to do to get through the field, of course, but Kaufman made a fantastic start, and I would imagine that caught everybody a little off guard.
Well, what happened was the outside row got bogged down, and he was able to jump by the pole, Doty, on the inside. And then Sammy, I got bogged down, didn't know which way to go. When I moved out, I got in the dust with my right rear, and Sammy got underneath me and run third then. So I was just screwed on the start. I didn't do it right.
Well, 35 laps on a mile track, it's long, but it wasn't long enough, was it?
No, I needed 150 today.
We're sorry, Doug. Good job anyway, as usual.
Thanks.
Well, the longest sprint car race of them all is history for this season. Doug Wolfgang ended up third, but the race that had everybody on their feet was that duel for the lead between Keith Kaufman and Sammy Swindell. Swindell won it. Brad Doty salvaged the 5th spot, even though he started up front. And here's how the second 5 looked at the conclusion of this race. For Brock Yates and Ed Bruce, I'm Steve Evans saying so long from the New York State Fairgrounds in Syracuse.
The executive producer for American Sports Cavalcade is Harvey M. Palick.